want you to understand that all of the scholars in the time of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, who we're going to be coming to in just a moment, held him to be a false prophet, the same as Musaylima al-Kadhab, and quoted the same hadith of the Prophet ﷺ in the Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari, in which he said that that is a place in which earthquakes and tribulations shall come from. Please keep in mind that at the time this hadith was stated, Musaylima al-Kadhab was already in the earth. They'd already exchanged letters, so it can't be about Musaylima. Second of all, the hadith is in the future tense. So it's referring to something that's coming in addition to Musaylima. And the scholars have identified that it's in reference to Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, another false teacher that was to come out of that land. Also, we have, I mentioned the first reviver of the Khawarij died in 1182. Muhammad ibn al-Hajj Ahmad al-Safarini died in 1188 AH, who was also one of the people that preached against him, called him a false prophet. Isa al-Qadumi was around during this time at 1188 AH, and so was Saif ibn Ahmed al-Najdi in 1189 AH. Both of them, again, said Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab was a false prophet, a false teacher, leading people astray, and that this is the Khawarij and a reviver of the cult. Imam Isa al-Qadumi, something's important about him. He is a father to so many scholars, his lineage. He's a hadith scholar, and we have no details of his birth or death records in any historical literature. It's for this reason why some historians believe that he may have been an appearance of Al-Khidr. Some historians believe he may have been an appearance of Al-Khidr, because in all the appearances we have no mention of life or death records, and he showed no signs of aging, Isa al-Qadumi. He's coming from an area, Al-Qadumi means Kafr Qadum. Kafr Qadum is in what's today being called Palestine. It is the place where the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam circumcised himself and his son. Qadum means the place of the axe. Kafr Qadum, because he used the sharp point of an axe to circumcise himself. All right, so he's coming from that land, and that place has given out to the world over 300 scholars, and it's a village. This can perhaps be called a town. It's given us that many scholars, and it's a town or a village. Kafr Qadum, Al-Qadumi. So many ulama. Now we come to 1183 to 1200 AH. Another Khawarij appearance came in the year 1111 AH, with a young man born in Arabiyyah in the city of Al-Uyayna in Najd province. Please keep in mind that this is keeping with the hadith regarding Najd and Bukhari of the Prophet ﷺ, and that a Sheikh al-Najdi, which shaitan came in the appearance of the old man from Najd, this reference was a reference to Arabiyyah, and that scholars have never referred to Iraq as a place, or no one from Iraq has ever been called al-Najdi. So when people are saying to try to dismiss this hadith, oh, it's referring to Iraq, it can't be, because scholars from Iraq have never been called al-Najdi. They've been called al-Iraqi, al-Zubayri, al-Baghdadi, but they've never been called al-Najdi. Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, as a youth, studied from his father, Imam Abdul Wahhab ibn Sulaiman. He was an alim. Imam Abdul Wahhab ibn Sulaiman was an alim and a grand qadi, and alongside his older brother Sulaiman. But on a detour to Iraq on the way to Sham, he underwent a change. He had happened across the books of Muhammad al-Amir al-Sana'ani, as well as isolated quotes from Imam Ibn Taymiyyah's collected digest of legal rulings, Majmu' Fatawa, which he read with great relish. Although untrained and unqualified as a scholar, he began to write books and make rulings not long after his return in the year 1150 AH. Many of these were not publicly revealed or taught openly, as the time was not yet deemed suitable. But with the death of his father in Huraymilat and his own immigration to Al-Uyayna and then to Ad-Dir'iyah, he came under the patronage of a local governor named Muhammad ibn Saud. It was agreed by Ibn Saud that he would be the temporal leader, while Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab was the spiritual head, and together they would purify Arabiyyah of all that they saw as idolatrous. The pact was sealed by Ibn Saud's clan intermarrying with the religious zealot. Please keep in mind that to this day, the Saud family, the rulers, Fahad ibn Abdul Aziz al-Saud, Abdullah ibn Abdul Aziz al-Saud, they are descendants of Muhammad ibn Saud. And every religious head of Salafiyyah over that kingdom bears the last name al-Sheikh, which means they are related to a Sheikh al-Najdi, Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. So even to this day, that unholy, blasphemous alliance is still there. Who's the present head over Salafiyyah in the religious world? Salih ibn Abdul Aziz al-Sheikh. Al-Sheikh. Well, who was before? Bin Baz, also related to them. They've kept it as incestuous as possible. They say they don't believe in dynasties and ruling families. They're not telling you the truth, because they have dynasties. Under the supervision and support of the new emperor of the movement, Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab penned some 22 pamphlets and booklets, all demanding obedience from the layman and scholar alike. Some of the major doctrinal positions propounded at variance with Muslim orthodoxy were things such as: one can know the meanings of all Allah's names and attributes in this life, even if they have not seen Him, Allah. The names and attributes of Allah have earthly meanings that we understand, meaning that when it says hand, it literally means hand. When it says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has wajh or face, it literally means face. It's literal. Salvation by faith and deeds being the reason for entrance into the paradise. Number 3, the state of the dead is close to that of annihilation, so they cannot hear those who come to visit them at their graves. This further includes the point that their wonders in life also cease at death. So to ask them to pray for one would be idolatry. Number 4, visiting those at the graveyard or sending blessings upon them at the graveside is idolatry. Same holds true for speaking of the unseen or absent, for example, the angels. Number 5, the vast majority of the Muslims down through the ages since the first 3 generations have slipped into idolatry. Do you see the parallels between him and Muhammad al-Amir al-San'ani? The wording's almost exactly the same. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, takfir. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, takfir. The points are exactly the same. You know why? Because the Khawarij are the same. The Khawarij are the same. As this happened, Muslims were obliged to draw new conclusions from the text and apply them in ways they saw fit. This, of course, would need to be checked by people of authority in the movement. In addition to this, the Muslims have come to be like the idol worshippers who believed that Allah was the creator, but just did not worship Him. Now, these were not all the beliefs. The beliefs of the organization of Salafiyyah are some 44 perhaps in number. They're major beliefs. They called their organization Al-Muwahidun, just like Muhammad ibn al-San'ani. But they also began to call themselves Al-Ikhwan, the Brotherhood. Jama'atul Muslimin, the Jama'ah of the Muslims. Al-Ta'ifatul Mansura, the victorious group. Al-Firqatul Najiyah, the saved sect. Do these sound like modest people? Giving themselves these grandiose titles. Their beliefs caused huge theological rifts between them and the Muslim community at large. The message of the Brotherhood was simple, stark, and unmistakable. They neither claimed to belong to any of the legal schools, nor did they claim ancestry to the theologians of the past, such as Imams Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Abu Mansur al-Maturidi, and Abu al-Hasan al-Ash'ari, radiyallahu anhum in any case. The Brotherhood did not claim to be any of these things, but rather the re-establishment of pure and pristine Islam that had been so long ago lost. Islam had to be re-preached all over again, preached anew. So when they referred to people, they say, of course, we respect and love Imam Abu Hanifa more than you Hanafis do. Because we check through his books. And if we find anything that disagrees with the Qur'an and the Sunnah, well, we leave it. Because that's what the Imam would have wanted. Even though the Imam was speaking to Qadis when he said this statement, who knew 300,000 ahadith, we follow him more than you follow him. We follow Imam al-Shafi'i. We're the true Shafi'is because we go to his books and we check them and evaluate them. Even though with our pidgin English and hopscotch Arabic, we don't know enough to check all the sources, but we know the sources better than you do. So you people should get back to following Qur'an and Sunnah. Qala Allah, Qala Rasulullah, ala faham sahaba. Allah said, His Messenger said, on the understanding of the companions. Notice these short, sharp political slogans. It's like a Democratic or Republican race. Very short and choppy. And it's easy to say them as well. Oh yes, Qala Allah, Qala Rasulullah, ala faham sahaba. That makes so much sense. So does murder to some people. That doesn't mean it's okay. There's lots of things that seem to make sense. And this is part of what it is. So this is what happened. They came into conflict with scholars who began writing, teaching, and preaching against the new movement. There were eminent sheikhs such as Sulaiman ibn Abdul Wahhab. This is his older brother, who at this time was a qadi and a judge. Imam Sulaiman ibn Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah wrote the earliest refutation that we've got against Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. Inshallah, this is set for release, and it's coming either before the end of the year, just into the new year. So he wrote 2 books. One, which was called the Sawa'iq al-Ilahiyya, the Divine Lightening. And then another one, Fasl al-Khitab, which is a longer treatment. He wrote that in 1190. The first one, As-Sawa'iq al-Ilahiyya, was shorter. He wrote that in 1164 Hijri. The second, Fasl al-Khitab, was written in his private study before he was captured and tortured to death. That document, the first one, As-Sawa'iq al-Ilahiyya, exposed the major theological implications of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab's creed. And it humiliated him in front of his followers because he couldn't answer some of the points. The second one was written in his study on the way out to do jihad against his younger brother, because his younger brother was destroying masjids, madrasas, murdering women, children, scholars, and the elderly. You have to understand, this wasn't a light matter. Another one was Imam Alawi al-Haddad from the great Yemeni Haddad family. What are the Haddad family doing about this menace now? Nothing. But they were on the front lines before. Now they're busy eating cake and interfaithing and sending out Christmas cards. They don't have time to do these things now. And it's serious. Other scholars, Abdullah ibn Dawood al-Basri, who was stabbed twice, but the sword did not cut him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected him. And other scholars who risked their lives to tell the truth. Some felt the sword of the assassin, fell as martyrs, while others were captured and tortured. Still others were free and continued preaching regardless, sometimes taking up arms against the theological system seeking to overthrow Muslim governance. Ghalib ibn Masa'id, governor of Mecca in the Ottoman era under Salim al-Thalith, fought them with all arms available. However, it was during his travels to Iraq, because I just want to review this, what happened. I want to give you the background of how Kitab ut-Tawhid, this book written by Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, that has caused, these 2 books have caused so much tribulation. So much tribulation. Tathhir al-I'tiqad and Kitab al-Tawhid, they've caused so much tribulation. Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab goes to a city in Iraq near the year 1140 AH, although he was supposed to be going to Syria and supposed to sit with Hanbali scholars there. He fell ill during the summertime on his journey. The heat was so great that he nearly died from the temperature. Traveling by foot and in great thirst, he was seen by a man by the name of Abu Humaydan, who put Ibn Abdul Wahhab on his donkey and led him all the way to an area known as Az-Zubayr in Iraq. It has never been stated for sure who this man was that helped him, but there have been suggestions about his identity and that his motives were sinister. Some historians have said it was a demon, and that's how he was led astray by finding those books. Allahu A'lam. While in Iraq, particularly in Az-Zubayr and Basra, Ibn Abdul Wahhab began to come across the theological works of Imams Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn al-Qayyim in wide display, but in incomplete quotes and extracts. He had not read the works of creed and jurisprudence that they had written before, but only their juristic analysis of certain texts with regards to jurisprudence. It was here that Ibn Abdul Wahhab, by reading these works unaided and with the weapon of his own intellect, would make the leap to believing that most Muslims had left the fold of Islam and rejected faith. After deep meditation, he wrote a book that would forever live in infamy and serve as a guide, and would serve as a guidebook for violence and intolerance, clothed in the sacred robes of Islam. This book is called Kitab ut-Tawhid. Kitab ut-Tawhid. Within this, it's not really a book, it's more of a booklet, because these people aren't scholarly, they don't really write books. Within this booklet, you can find a number of chapters that point to takfir of the ummah, salvation being by faith and deeds, and that the end result of all faith belongs to them.